Matthew 24:12-13. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. Here we see Jesus asserting that during the tribulation, before his return, many believers will wax cold, which I believe to mean that they will lose their faith. This group is then contrasted with those who endured until the end, never losing faith and being saved in the end. Again, why would he compare people who endured until the end to people who never believed at all? It doesn't make sense. Further evidence to support that this waxing cold is referring to people losing their faith is supported by the parallel verse in 2 Thessalonians, where Paul is explaining that the events that must occur before Christ's return. Paul mentions a great apostasy happening during the tribulation, which aligns with the many who will wax cold that Jesus spoke of. 2 Thessalonians 2:3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. Right? Here, Jesus is explaining what will happen before his return during the tribulation. Here, Paul is explaining, right? Paul mentions a great falling away. Jesus mentions many people waxing cold. They're speaking, I believe, about the same thing. What this would mean that the one who apostatizes, that is, they leave the faith or fall away, will not be saved, unlike the ones who endured until the end.
Matthew 24, let's start reading from a few verses further up. In verse 7, it says, For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you. And ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. So again, like we saw in Matthew 10, we see here that it's talking about the tribulations. It's talking about believers going through tribulation and persecution. And we see here that it says that the love of many shall wax cold. Now, Young Don seems to stake a lot on the fact that this love of many shall wax cold is talking about believers losing their faith. But there's no evidence to support that. This could easily be talking about society as a whole. Their love shall wax cold, and they'll start persecuting the believers even more. They won't have compassion. They won't have pity. So father will rise against their children, and their children against the fathers. This could very easily be talking about that instead of what Young Don suggests, that this has to be talking about people losing their faith. But again, in verse 13, where it says, He that shall endure to the end, the same shall be saved, what we have to ask ourselves is, what are they enduring to the end of? And that answer is they're enduring to the end of the tribulation. What Jesus is saying is that those that endure unto the end of the tribulation will not die. They will be saved physically in their flesh. And let's go ahead and prove this even further. It says here in verse 22 of Matthew 24, it says, And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. And so, again, this is not talking about salvation of the soul from hell, but rather this is saying that those that endure to the end of the tribulation will be saved physically. Their flesh will be saved. Now, I do believe in a post-trib, pre-wrath rapture. So I believe that what it's talking about here is that those that endure to the end of the tribulation, they will be raptured up and they will not die. Now, whether you agree with me on that or not, what is clear is that these believers are enduring to the end of the tribulation, and what's being saved is their flesh, not their soul. So Matthew 24 is not indicating salvation from hell, but rather the salvation of the body from being killed during the tribulation. And just to address what he said out of 2 Corinthians chapter 2, again, this passage does not indicate to us who is doing the falling away. Paul simply says, Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day, the day where Jesus is going to come back, the rapture of the church, it says, For that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. Nothing in this passage indicates that it's believers losing their faith. But rather, I believe this is talking about Christianity as a whole departing from the truth. Some of which I believe we're already starting to see, but I believe it will get worse as time progresses.